Hi, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz. Welcome to episode number 94 of the InnovaBuzz Podcast, designed to help smart businesses committed to innovation, service, and modern marketing become even more innovative. This is another episode in our Model the Masters series, where we examine the values, skills, beliefs, and experiences of people who I've chosen as masters and present information to apply their methods to your situation. Model their methods so that you can achieve success, just like our masters. All of our masters are real people, just like you and I. So what they've achieved, we too can achieve if we choose to, by modelling from them. In this episode of our Model the Masters series, our featured master is Colin Gooch, the Technical Director of Resene Paints. Colin was a valued customer in my previous corporate career, but much more than that, Colin is a person whom I admire greatly, who has been an inspiration to me in my career, who became a friend and mentor in the time we worked together. He was instrumental in all of the innovative technical developments at Resene Paints and positioning them as a leader in the industry over the past 45 years. I had the privilege of interviewing Colin in the early days of the InnovaBuzz podcast, but unfortunately the technology let us down at that stage and the recording wasn't usable. So now, with my side of the technology sorted out, I'm hugely excited to present this Model the Masters special episode of the InnovaBuzz podcast with today's question: what would Colin Gooch do? In 1963, Colin Gooch came to New Zealand from the United Kingdom and joined the then Polymer Corporation in a technical service role, having left school at 16 and up to that stage not completed a tertiary education. He loved New Zealand and loved his job. In technical service, he learnt about the range of products the company produced, sold, and he had to deal with problems the customers had in using those problems. So that gave him a very firm grounding in understanding the products at a deep level and the problems that customers could possibly encounter with them. Now, Colin's insatiable curiosity, his thirst for knowledge and learning, saw him become the technical service manager for the newly named Resene Company, and he quickly set about turning both ideas and also problems into real products that were both innovative and practical. Resene pioneered water-based technology. They pioneered environmentally sustainable coatings. They pioneered colour tinting systems for water-based systems, particularly ones that enable both light and dark, very bold colours, which had been a huge challenge before this particular development. There are many other paint and paint-related innovations that have come from Resene and from Colin's team or from his protégés. Let's listen to Colin reflect on the early days of Resene and his relationship and working partnership with then Chief Executive Officer Tony Nightingale.
It was fiery at times, I can tell you that. It was quite fiery. I mean, the prick used to challenge me, I think. And not that there's a competitive bone in my body, of course, but yeah, I'd never like to be beaten by anything. So often he would make what I thought was some quite outrageous demands. I said, no, yeah, that can't be done. And then say, how can we do it? and then do it. So it was a really, it's sort of a pretty like a creative tension between us. Business-wise, sometimes his ideas were different from mine, but he was a better commercial guy than me. He came back with the idea of test pots. I said, for God's sake, Tony, that's a stupid idea. Test pots have been brilliant. Yeah. Well, I was the only chemist, and I think we had 9 sales reps. Our first sales conference was held in a small office, and there was about 10 in the factory. Now I think we number probably 850 all up, that there or thereabouts, with temporary staff in there. So it's it really has grown. I mean, I had an office literally under the stairs, so Harry Potter and I had a lot in common. It was tiny. You lived off the smell of an oily rag. You'd really be juggling the raw material purchases and see what the banking has come in to do it. All of us were jack of all trades, did all sorts of stuff. But that was exciting times. A small team, and probably still the most exciting times were those times. Best innovation for me was the colour system that we put together. Tony, with a lot of foresight, had got into a lead-free tinder system, which was brilliant, but it didn't really work. And so the first job was to make this thing work, and for necessity being the mother of invention, we really came up with stuff. If we'd been smart, we could have patented the whole lot. We're the first in the world, I think, to bring out coloured bases and high opacity lead-free yellows, and that, which the work was pretty much completed in '73, although it's always been as a living thing, it's been added to. That formed the basis of what still now is considered one of the world's best colour systems. So that was really fundamental to the building block of our growth, and I do feel very possessive about that. That's sort of my system.
As Colin said during that clip, he'll never be beaten by anything. More about that later. So, what makes Colin Gooch successful? What drives him? What can we learn from his success and from his approach? Let's begin by examining some values and beliefs that I attribute to Colin. What do we know about his vision as articulated for him and for his business? Now, I've had the privilege of working with Colin for many years. In all that time, I came to appreciate his insatiable curiosity and also the intensity to follow up on that curiosity. I can hear him now in my ears. Yes, I understand that's what happens, but why? And if I answered that, he'd respond with, but why? What makes it do that? And keep asking those questions like a 3-year-old child, but why? Until I reached the point of admitting that I could no longer answer that depth of why. I just didn't know anymore. Which, of course, is where the discovery and the possibilities opened up. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand that. And they think that somebody's just being a nuisance by continually asking why. In the case of Colin, we always got to this point of discovery and considering new possibilities. Colin was always focused on real problems or needs and on finding better ways to deliver solutions to those problems or needs for his customers. Of course, Resene was a company that has a culture of innovation that provided a perfect environment for Colin's curiosity and for that innovative drive. Now, I'd like to share with you a presentation or part of a presentation where Colin is describing the development of the Resene colour tinting systems, the challenges that provided and how he responded to those challenges.
The other decisions that he made and what he saw was colour was the way was the way forward, not paint, colour. One of the major things he did was decide that this particular colour card, which is a British standard colour 2660, this was the way to go. It was released in England. He saw it, said, that's what I want. And that's what he did. At exactly the same time, he was being sold by an American group called the Californian Ink Company, this concept of tinting systems, whereby, which you all know now, but again, this was really quite revolutionary. So, decided he wanted to be in that, which is a really good idea. He also, they said, well, do you want a standard lead base or do you want to try this new lead free? So he said, lead free sounds the right thing to do. they'll go lead-free. And that was, at once, to quote Charles Dickens like, it was the best of decisions and it was the worst of decisions. It was the worst of decisions because it didn't work. Those beautiful yellow colours on that chart, which all the architects loved and wanted to specify, came out like this on the left. And with 5 or 6 coats you could get coverage. The only Resene paint on the job would be these bright colours, and we got a dreadful reputation, and it was tough. And that was just about the time that I joined the company. He basically said, "Oh, here we go, Colin, that's good. So first thing, can you fix this?" It was the best of decisions because it forced us to future-proof our company. It forced us to do things well before the opposition were to try and solve these problems. And we did solve the problem, as you know. And we went from there, from the left to the right. And that just looks like one drawdown card, but believe me, that encapsulates the strength of Resene Paints for 3, 4, even 5 decades. And it's still is a powerful underpinning thing of our company. There was another company in Auckland who tried to do the same, but they didn't get this. It was a company called British Imperial Paints, and they failed and they died simply because they couldn't get over this. There's other spin-offs to that. You know, we say, well, you take lead out of paint, you've got to take it out completely. Lead is a very important dryer in paints. And so, at the same time, as in, I think, 1971, we'd taken lead out of dryers out of the paints. There were still major companies still struggling with that technology in the years 2000. And so that decision was so powerful.
One of the many things I admire about Colin is his ability to take fundamental technical studies from the scientific community and translate the findings from simple laboratory experiments into complex painting systems and situations to provide innovative and practical solutions to specific needs or problems. Often his inspiration would be well outside the chemistry of painting, or indeed even traditional chemistry. He would study and model something that might be happening in nature or in pharmaceuticals, to name a couple of examples, and apply the core principles to paint chemistry. When I was working for a raw material supplier and Resene was one of our customers, Colin was the only person outside the organisation that we shared highly confidential technical information, so-called trade secrets, with. Colin had early access to our latest technology, and the reward for us was that we got exceptionally valuable feedback on how the product worked in a real practical application in the hands of a real customer, which was something our research people were not used to. And that's not being facetious, that's the reality. We did that in the knowledge that Resene would often be first adopters. But more than that, Colin's team often turned products that we ourselves had given up on commercialising into a real commercial success on many occasions in different applications than we'd actually envisaged. He definitely is a lateral thinker. Of course, it took time to build the relationship between our research department, our commercial and business departments, and Colin's team to this point. 3 factors were critical in bringing this about: a high level of trust and empathy, and a belief in Colin and his team based on their track record, and of course a level of faith from Colin in the abilities of our research community. A shared goal and vision, which was to be the leader in our fields, to be innovative and to be first to market. Colin often said, "It's good to be best, but it's best to be first." One of his favourite quotes was from Louis Grizzard, who remarked about a dog sled team that only the lead dog gets a change of scenery. Colin would often ask, imagine the view of the 2nd, 3rd and 4th dogs. And that's a picture that you probably don't want to consider too long. Colin was always challenging us as a supplier, to Resene in a way to make us better and to make our products and services better, which is a good thing, although it didn't feel that way at the time. Now, more than that, of course, he also wanted us to challenge him as well, since he believes that it's in being challenged that we grow, that we learn, and that we improve. I mentioned earlier that Colin did not allow himself to be defeated. He always said, with a touch of self-deprecation, I might add, I don't have a competitive bone in my body. Now, I remember fondly when we toured the research facilities of our company together on technology discovery and understanding missions, how after hours he'd teach me to play pétanque on the Côte d'Azur, where we were at our European headquarters. Pétanque is one of his many sporting passions, and he's exceptionally good at it. And of course, I'm a total rank novice, so it was boring to play against a ranked novice. So Colin would teach me just enough to make me competitive and challenge him, but I suspect that there were a few tricks that he kept up his sleeve just to make sure that he had an advantage over me. Of course, all the while, we'd be reflecting on the technical information that we'd covered during the day, and always I'd hear that "yes, but why?" question repeated. The insatiable curiosity and desire to take that new knowledge and apply it to a multitude of specific situations was ever present. Let's take a look at Colin's behaviour and what he does that makes him successful. This, as usual, is broken down into the 5 success principles that I've spoken about before, particularly in episode 66 of the InnovaBuzz podcast. And the first success principle, of course, as you know, is knowing your outcome. Now, Resene have a very clear vision of producing the highest quality products in the New Zealand paint market, and I think that's expanding to Australia and even further right now. But developing the highest quality products with a company dynamic of continuous improvement, and Colin certainly embodies that. Now, in working on specific projects, Colin would focus on solving a particular practical problem, such as paint adhesion to concrete or galvanised iron, or on filling a specific need, such as fulfilling a customer desire for colour in painting. He would then seek to understand both the underlying causes of the problem or the need or the desire, and then the possibilities of products that might provide the solution, and seek to understand the fundamentals of how those products work so that he could combine all that together to deliver a solution to the customer, the best solution possible. And of course, he wanted to deliver that solution quickly and be first to market. So the second success principle is taking massive action. As I mentioned, being first and being a leader is definitely part of Colin's makeup. Refer to the dog sled analogy. One thing he said on the interview we did in answer to advice on leadership was dare to be different. That has been a trademark of his career at Resene and proved very effective for him. It's worth noting that Colin's insatiable curiosity, his need to know why things behave as they do, did not prevent him from taking action. So he didn't sit on that question until he fully understood it. Even when things were not fully understood, taking action and testing a hypothesis was quickly undertaken. The third success principle is calibrating your progress. As a scientist, Colin's natural instinct is to conduct experiments, to measure the outcomes and to work out the next steps from there. A major focus in his success, in my opinion, has been the willingness to get products into the hands of customers quickly and to gather feedback and improve from there. In this calibration of progress, Colin used his curiosity to understand the fundamentals to help guide the next steps and actions to further both the understanding and the progress towards the outcome. The fourth success principle is behavioural flexibility. Now, you would have already gathered by now that Colin is a driver of change, but he also displays great flexibility in situations when he has little control over the change itself. Like, for example, when low volatile organic compound, or VOC, legislation was introduced for paints. Legislation that at the time much of the industry thought was unreasonable. Colin and Resene decided that this change was inevitable and represented both a challenge, which you know that Colin loves, and an opportunity to be first to market with a complete range of low VOC or even zero VOC, because that's what Resene did, zero VOC paints. Now, the fifth success principle is the mindset of excellence, and I've already spoken about Colin's play-to-win attitude, his love of a challenge, his desire to be always improving and not rest on past achievements, all attributes displaying the mindset of excellence. One of Colin's strongest values is joy. Joy in everything you do. We had a lot of fun when we worked together. We had fun when we finished our work for the day and went out to play pétanque or enjoy a glass or two of Pinot Grigio, which is his favourite white wine, or it was in those days. Perhaps it's changed now. He's also built a great team around him at Resene and an extended team of support people from suppliers and partner organisations with three key attributes: imagination about what could be, curiosity, and enthusiasm. So in doing that, he's left a legacy at Resene that will continue into the future and position Resene as the leader that they already are going into the future. Now, in wrapping up this episode of Model the Masters, what would Colin Gooch do? Here are 5 key steps from my analysis of Colin. Firstly, cultivate an insatiable curiosity combined with an imagination of what could be. Always ask why, and always challenge yourself and any assumptions made. So that's assumptions that you make yourself primarily, but also challenge assumptions that other people are making. Secondly, treat challenges that are outside your control as opportunities. Turn them into opportunities to develop innovative products and be first to market with those products. Thirdly, if you don't enjoy what you do, you've got a problem. Change what you do. Enthusiasm is one of the keys to success. So you must be enthusiastic about what you're doing. Fourth, avoid becoming complacent. Don't rest on your laurels. Don't rest on past achievements. Always look to improve. Always look to keep ahead of the competition. Remember the lead dog story. When you're ahead, that's the time to keep working on improvements. And finally, don't take yourself too seriously. And if you watch the whole YouTube video of both the YouTubes that I'll put in the show note links, you'll know what I mean. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Model the Masters and learning from what would Colin Gooch do. The show notes for this episode will be at innovabiz.com.au/Colin Gooch. That is COLINGOOCH, all lowercase, all one word, innovabiz.com.au/Colin Gooch. You'll also find contact information for getting in touch with Colin and links to the Resene website as well as the YouTube videos I've referenced there. Now, we'd love to hear about your biggest takeaway from this episode and the action you'll take as a result. I'm really keen to understand what you take from the modelling exercise and what you might apply in your particular business. So if you leave those comments in the blog post section, I'm sure that I will see that and promise to give you a comment back. And also other people will probably see that too and start to have a dialogue with you. Now, if you haven't already done so, head on over to iTunes or Stitcher or Pocket Casts and subscribe to the InnovaBuzz podcast so you'll never miss a future episode. If you're listening to this, then I'm sure you've already left a review for us there. If not, go on, leave a review. I know you want to. Seriously, we're always welcoming feedback and reviews, so please do let us know how we are doing. Also, if there's anything you want us to cover or questions you want answered on a future InnovaBuzz podcast, or someone you'd like to learn more about in a future Model the Masters episode, then please send those ideas to us. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz. Be awesome and keep innovating.